So I see that you're wearing a thumbs up
yeah.
Facebook. Yeah. That's brilliant. Thank you.
It was actually on the top of the pile of t-shirts this morning. So I was like, yeah, of course I need to wear that. So
Well, there you go. Yeah, thank you for that.
Some...
This is the first year where Rimp is going to be. It's not going to be. It's going to be, but probably in fall. So we don't know. We just need to see where this goes.
Yeah.
But that's how it is. So I'm here with Mikkel DeMib, longtime friend and longtime friend and fellow internet marketer or digital marketer. I don't know if marketer is the right word. Strategist. We both have been around the world together and not done interesting things and watch each other's kids grow up and see things develop, and this is great. Thank you, Mikkel, for being here.
Yeah, you make us sound so old, but then again, maybe we are. I think we met. What is it? I think it's almost 20 years ago now. Almost.
Yes, it's getting close. Yep.
I think the conference I held in Copenhagen 2001, I think, was probably the first time.
I think actually. I wish that would be there, but we probably met in Stockholm in 2004.
Yeah. No,
I think that's
maybe, yeah. It's
something like that. Yeah, but
close
still,
to 20 years anyway.
Yeah, exactly. And we've been together around the world. I mean, our trip to Iran is legendary.
It sure is, yeah.
I think how many? I think we went to 5 or 6 cities. And I learned the phrase 2 minutes can mean anything from 2 minutes to never.
Yeah. They do operate a little bit of that African time.
But
very, very nice trip. Yeah, very nice. And I know we both still have very good friends in Iran. And appreciate that.
Absolutely. So what is Mikkel DeMib up to now?
Well, I mean, it's a lot of the usual... It's a lot of the usual game, of course. I mean, we're fortunate enough in our kind of business that we can still do what we usually do because we're not depending on production facilities. We can more or less do the work we do from anywhere. I have my agency, Kristjan Digital, and we're a team of 20 people, and of course, all of them have been sent home to work. But I mean, from a production standpoint, they can do pretty much what they usually do. Of course. I mean, we're limited in not being able to physically meet. I mean, sometimes, not that often, but sometimes we physically meet with clients. Of course, we can't do that. But I think Skype and phone calls, 90% work out for that. Yeah. So, I mean, it's more or less for us business as usual. Of course, we have some clients that have financial problems. It's been a little more difficult to close the big engagement. So the big, I mean, we have two sides of our business. We have traditional consulting business that lots of you guys out there know. We do consulting for mid-sized and large companies, all sorts of digital consulting, primarily focused on organic and paid search. Those kind of contracts, we do have some contracts that we're maintaining, and they keep going because those big companies are not going out of business right away. So they still need us. But it's been difficult to close the new contract. We actually had a lot of requests for proposals. We wrote those proposals, but it seems that for these kind of companies, it's a little bit difficult to get the final go on contracts. But the other side of...
Isn't that understandable, though?
It is. I mean, totally understandable. And we try and help them through whatever we can do. The other side of our business is Kristjan Business, which is a full service type of package for small businesses and businesses that have a more simple need for the web. A lot of small businesses like local hairdressers and service companies and stuff. They basically need a website to generate leads. People need to be able to find them in Google, and they need to come to a trustworthy website, and they need to generate leads from that. We have also extended this service with webshop, but still, like more simple webshop. But with this service, we do everything for them. So basically, you just have to sign the contract. We build the website, we write the content, we have great copywriters, and we do the marketing and everything. So it's like a full service. And that side of the business have actually grown during the crisis. we sold more in March than we did in December, January, and February combined.
Yeah. But why
of
is
course,
that? Is that because of e-commerce, or why is that?
It's a combination of simple lead generation sites and e-commerce sites. I think it's because, and that's very encouraging and optimistic. I think a lot of these small companies realize, hey, we are going to be here after the crisis, and the world may be changing. A lot of people, what we see now, of course, a huge increase in online transactions. People go online and buy more for logical reasons. But what we expect, and I think what most people expect, is that, of course, once the physical businesses open up again, lots of people are going to go back to them, but not all of them. Because now some people have got experience dealing and buying things online that they didn't have before. And I think some of them are going to like it. Some of them are going to prefer to do that. So I think some of them are going to stick. So I think what we're going to see after the crisis is actually that the level of online business is going to be higher than it was before. And maybe also there's going to be increased competition because maybe some of the market is going to be smaller. So a lot of the smaller businesses that we deal with, I think, are optimistic that they are going to be here after the crisis. And so now it's time for them to invest in better online presence, better marketing, and so on. And I think, in fact, that's very encouraging to see that.
Yeah, I think you are as close to spot on as possible when it comes to this. Just that analogy is sums up the situation. And from where I stand, I'm seeing companies either holding their hands completely or stepping up their game. And I think the ones that will step up the game will actually be the ones who are in the position that you just described there, which is brilliant.
Yeah.
But one thing was
because I mean, in a terrible Darwinistic way, the weak ones are going to die and the strong are going to live. It's terrible to say, but it's a fact. So the companies that will actually make it through this crisis and prepare themselves for life after the crisis, I think will be very strong. And what we usually see after really big crises, and I mean, of course, it's terrible to compare this to a war, but in some ways it's kind of like that. And what we saw after Second World War, after First World War, and after these big crises, that after that business pick up, and most likely for the rich part of the world, like our countries, they're probably going to fuel some money. They now talking about maybe paying back people some of their tax money or something, because we need to fuel energy into the economy once this crisis is over, and that money is going out and going to be spent. And so the businesses that survive this and have a strong presence, they're going to benefit from that. So I think it's perfect time for them to invest wherever they can.
Yeah, absolutely. So from that to something completely different. One of the things which I love about Facebook as a sample, or anything that we do when it comes to social, Twitter or LinkedIn, is that the ability to be able to kind of just have one eye on your friends in a way. And one of the things which I have really enjoyed is to both, of course, watch your kids grow up. I see one of them coming in there.
It's my daughter.
I'm like, hey. And then also that you have taken up this passion for building up things out of clay, or what is it, vases, and so you build up a passion around that. How did that come about?
I mean, it's I've been working with ceramics for many years. I actually started out when I was a small kid, and then I had a long break growing up, and I didn't have access to these facilities. But then 5 years ago, when I moved back to this area where I live now, just outside of Copenhagen, I moved closer to my aunt, who is a professional ceramic artist, and then I got access to her facilities and of course the kiln and that stuff you need. So you need quite a lot of equipment to do ceramic arts. And then I started up again. So in the past few years, I've been stepping up and now also extended my facilities at home so I can do a little more here. And I actually extended my facilities at home just like, I don't know, 6 weeks before the crisis hit, which I've been very fortunate, because now that we are forced to stay so much more inside. I have at least something to do, which is so yeah. I mean, it's I love it. It's I mean, it's I've been always been doing things outside of SEO. I also produce lots of music, and I still do that. But I like working with ceramics in the way that, I mean, let's be honest, what you and I are doing, the business we're doing, serves no greater purpose in life. I mean, we're moving money around, you know. But I mean, no, but I mean, honestly, what we are doing is not making the world a better place. You know, it's not leaving any footprints for future generations to enjoy. It's just marketing, which is great. I mean, I love my work. It's very interesting, and the past 20 plus years in the internet have been very fun. But I like first of all, I like to get away from the computer sometimes. And working with pottery is a great way to do that, because when you're sitting there with your hands in the mud, you can't even pick up your phone. I mean, you can't do anything. You just tied into this pile of mud, and that's very interesting. But also, I like the idea of creating something that is more or less everlasting. I mean, a good pot. I mean, if it's fired well, and I mean, it could last thousands of years. I'm not saying that anyone will have an interest in my pots in 1,000 years from now, but just the thought of it.
You never know.
Yeah, I mean, just the thought of it, and also to be able to create some physical product that I mean, you can give to people, and they will enjoy that, or you know, so. And I just like that having that strong physical, totally off computer side of my life as well.
But that's brilliant though, and you kind of answered the question that I was going to ask you afterwards, how can you marry this together? Because one of the things that I do, I mean, I have a couple of these guys here, so I tend to play a guitar a little bit, and that's kind of my cleaning of the head. But I actually, and you, the stuff they're doing is actually wonderful, and it looks super nice. So yeah, kudos to you, brilliant. You spoke about the recorded music, and that's one of the things which fascinated me about you when we met the first time. You lived in the US, didn't you, and kind of worked with some relatively famous artists at the time?
No, actually, during my time in music business, I was staying in Denmark, but I was operating a recording studio in Copenhagen, and we were fortunate enough. Again, we were kind of first movers, the same way as we've been in digital marketing.
Yeah.
Because I started my music business, the recording studio, in 85, 86 or something. And very soon after that was when the whole club scene kind of exploded with a whole new generation of producers and music songwriters that came out of the DJ environment. So like completely new. I mean, before that, everybody who wrote music had like a music, typically an instrument background. They played guitar or piano or something. And then suddenly you had a new generation that didn't know how to play music, but they know what music should sound like from their experience as a DJ. And they started producing. And as we all know now, that became hugely successful. In the beginning, of course, it was hip hop and techno and club music. But very soon after that, it kind of merged with both rock and roll and pop music, especially, of course. They started to use this way of producing, and they brought in all these producers. And we were kind of a new studio at that time when that happened in the late 80s. And the traditional recording studios in Denmark, they were still tied up in this old school rock and roll mentality. And they didn't understand how these guys wanted to produce. I mean, these hip hop and DJ producers, they wanted a much more powerful bottom-end, you know, a lot more bass, a lot more crunchy sound, a lot more noises and stuff. And the traditional producers and traditional studios were like, oh no, you can't do that. This is too much bottom, or this is, you know. And we were like young, and we had a relatively new studio, so we were like, well, if that's what you want, you know, go ahead, let's do that. And so very fast, by I guess pure luck, we became like the preferred studio in Denmark for this new scene. So we were, and this scene, of course, exploded. So and some of these producers became very good. Some of them are still very famous. and they draw attention internationally, and that's probably why you referenced the US, because we started to get a lot of productions from the US. So we did like De La Soul and Queen Latifah and Tribe Called Quest and all these kind of early stage hip hop acts. Hello.
Yeah,
and as I said, this also merged into pop music. So we did Vanessa Williams and very big like commercial pop projects like that. And that was a fun time. I mean, and also it was like the golden age of music, because that was back when we sold CDs, and that was back when you can sell a lot of CDs. I think with Vanessa Williams, it sold, I think, 4 million CDs or something like that. It's the only American platinum I have at home. So, but I mean, it just was golden age. There was lots of money in music business, and of course that was right until the music business decided to do collective harakiri and kill themselves. It was like, yeah, I mean, of course they blame the internet. It's not easier to blame someone else than it is to realize that you did a terrible job in your own business. But yeah. So, but until then, it was a lot of fun. So yeah, but just like you still play music, once you touch that and once you perfected the ability to do great stuff with, I would say, any kind of arts, you can never leave it. I mean, it's always going to be part of your life, because it's just, again, just like pottery, it's different than doing marketing. I mean, I love doing marketing. It's a lot of fun, but arts, music, pottery, whatever, it's just something different.
Yeah, well, it's actually interesting that this comes up, because speaking to colleagues, I found that creativity is super important. I mean, there's a lot of people out there that know the technology behind SEO, but they lack the creativity and the approach of it. So what I've learned is that actually, from an SEO point of view and the digital marketing in general, creativity plays a major role. So your potteries and your music backgrounds actually is something that supports you in your then day-to-day business.
I think so too, and I think, I mean, it's creativity is often the ability to see something in a completely new perspective. Or even if you know the rules, and I mean, in music, there are lots of rules about scales and stuff and chords and things. But what makes really, really interesting music is sometimes when you break those rules.
Yeah.
It's okay if you know the rules, and it's okay, when you break them, but breaking them can create something that is original, of course, by definition, and also much more interesting. And I think that also goes for online marketing and search. And of course, we had this discussion for decades whether or not you should abide by the rules that Google set out. I don't care about knowing the rules. It's okay, but I don't necessarily need to follow them all the time, because sometimes breaking the rule, I'm not talking about breaking the law, because I think you should abide by law. But breaking the rules of engagement can sometimes create something that's much better. And I mean, in marketing, it's very much about beating your competition, winning the marketing war. And if you follow the same rules that everybody else does, and you do exactly the same, it's gonna end up being a question of pure strength. The one who has the most money, the one who has the biggest army is gonna win. But if you think creatively and do like a flanking war, or go around things in a different way, you can, even as a small business, win over bigger businesses. Even with small muscles, you can win the fight with really big guys. And that's what I find interesting, and that's what I also still practice, and especially in our Waimea business product, where we sell this combined service that includes everything for a fraction of what most other companies pay for that combined service of building a website, creating content, doing SEO, doing link building, doing all these things. But that's only because I wouldn't say we even bent the rules, but we thought creative in a way of creating something that is a more efficient way of doing things, so we can keep it much cheaper.
Absolutely, and I think that you're quite correct. I mean, this is often what sets things aside, and I can just look at myself when it comes to that. I come from a country of 350,000 people, and for some reason we were able to get clients in that were far bigger than we should be able to get in, global clients and so on. So that actually you're quite right, and I agree with you 100%. So just to summarize this up, because I want to try to keep this. I know you and I could probably go on for quite a while. So
yeah, maybe a couple of days or something.
Yes. Order some food.
As long as we have enough coffee. So
yeah, I'm actually done with mine.
Oh, that's terrible. That's why you're trying to round it up.
I'm starting to panic here.
Yeah.
So based upon what you told me, if we summarize it up and we just look at the situation we're in now, is that basically just don't panic. We will get back on track. Or what would be your take on what do you say to companies that come to you and say, okay, help, what can I do?
I mean, it very much depends on the kind of company, of course, and the kind of business you're in, because I mean, generally, of course, there's a huge drop in business. Lots of businesses are suffering. And in Denmark, similar to other countries, we have lockdown. So, I mean, a lot of type of companies like restaurants, fitness centers, hairdressers and stuff have been closed completely. So they have absolutely no revenues. And for those kind of businesses, it's a survival game. And they probably need to cut costs dramatically and do it fast, do it hard. It's going to hurt. It's not going to be pleasant in any way. People in their company are going to be unemployed. It's terrible in many ways. Or maybe it's even so bad for them that they have to consider closing down the business and maybe starting up again at a later point. That's the terrible reality of things. But a lot of other companies are kind of like, struggling through. We also got all these huge help packages. I think the packages in Denmark is now equal to about 300 billion Danish kroner, which is an enormous amount of money. But of course, this is to kind of help these companies through. And I think that's going to help a lot more companies get through this. So if you are in a position where you can get through this, I would still say cut the fat. Get rid of everything that, you don't need. But I definitely wouldn't, and I'm not just saying this because it's part of my business. I wouldn't say that if it wasn't true. I would definitely not cut away your engagement in the internet and your long-term strategies for how to re-engage users once your clients are back and ready to buy. Because as I said in the beginning, I do think that's going to be even more important after this crisis. The other thing, coming back to what we talked about just before, is be creative. And if you're not creative enough yourself, ask some of your friends. I've seen so many good examples. I mean, just a very simple thing, like some of these restaurants that have been closed down, they're now focusing more on takeaway. And of course, it's not going to bring back all the business they had, but maybe bring back 30% or 40%. And then at least they can keep a couple of their most important employees doing this takeaway and keep the business running and pay their rent. But we've also seen some companies in Denmark that have actually increased their business. There was a very good example that I have no relationship, but a young woman that is running an online business selling liquor, and all kinds of really nice and specialized types of liquor. And right when the crisis hit, she saw a huge drop in business. And of course, she was panicking. But then she was very creative, and she figured out a way to do these online tasting events. So I think she sends out these little samples, and then she do these, chat room community video thing and do these tasting events. I don't know exactly how it goes, but now she have actually six-doubled her business since before the crisis.
Okay.
Yeah, and so again, in going back to that Darwinistic thing, there is actually a term that psychologists use. It's called post-traumatic growth. We all know about post-traumatic syndrome, but post-traumatic growth is a condition where, because of a traumatic event, you actually grow something. You and grow your business, or you. And I think this is what happens. I mean, when you're forced with something as traumatic and tragic as this, some people are gonna go down. They're gonna be depressed. They feel like they can't do anything, they can't move, and maybe they can't, and they go out of business. But some people see it as a kick in their butt and start thinking more creative and develop things. that they wouldn't otherwise have developed. And this is actually a good thing, because of course this woman with this liquor business, she should continue doing that after the crisis, because this is a really good idea. And the restaurants that now see an increased business in takeaway, they should continue doing that after the crisis. So I think on the other side of the crisis, I think we will see a lot of companies that have invented new products, new businesses, new variations and new services that may actually be better. We are also seeing it in with doctors and hospitals, where we talked about now for, I don't know, 10 years, 15 years, why can't you do some video-based consultations? And they're like, yeah, we can't do that. It's not so good, and it's not secure enough. Now they all do it, and for the greater part of it, it actually works very good. I mean, of course, you can't do all consultations with your doctor. Sometimes they need to actually physically touch you or see something. But I had a consultation with my doctor. It was actually something that was previously booked, and then of course the crisis came and she couldn't do it physically, so she did it with FaceTime. And it actually worked out great, because it was just, she had to look at some blood samples and give me some feedback and ask me some questions. That worked great. So why not continue with that after the crisis? So this is what I'm talking about with post-traumatic growth.
Post-growth, I love that. I actually was trying to find a pen to write it down, but sadly I couldn't find a pen, so I'll have to remember it. Oh, what's the video? I can watch the video and then I can see it. Mikkel, this has been great. Thank you. And I always love talking to you. And it was great seeing you here in Norway some weeks back. It was the only reason why I came was to come and give you a hug. But now I would only be able to give you a virtual hug. So, so take good care of your family, and hopefully we'll catch up soon. And I'll probably be coming through.
Oh, that's another one.
Men jag är gift.
No, jag ska säga. Ja.
Ja,
nu var jag tala med han.
Du vet är det gift som min hus?
Det är sånt som han tar kugg. Låt mig klara. Ja, see. I have no control. But yeah, so I probably might be coming through there, going down to my dad down in Thunder. So I might catch up with you sooner or later.
I hope so. You're always welcome.
Brilliant. Thank you. And thank you. And say hi to the family.
I will. See you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.